we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not. Hi there, and welcome to Better Than Not, the podcast that aims to capture shifting perspectives and thought-provoking ideas in conversation, while questioning is anything what it seems. Based on my series, Changing Frame of Reference, which you can read on the Substack app, and I hope you will, as it might give you some insight into what the podcast is all about. I also hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel, Better Than Not, so I can continue to bring you great guests like I have today. I'm your host, Bob Gardham, and this is a special podcast for me because this is the first time I think I've had a person from my extended family on the podcast. So welcome, Bob Gardham.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm very excited to have this conversation and for you to be participating. Bob is, so when I say he's my dad's brother, that would make him my uncle. But yet he looks younger than I do. How does that work? Anyway, Bob is a retired, well, he's the father of, I'll say, 3 kids. And I want to say 5 grandkids?
7.
7 grandkids. Oh my goodness. There's a misnomer on me. So, and you can see how proud he is of that for sure. Bob's a retired project manager who's worked both in the federal government and in the private sector. We'll definitely be delving into that because he's had some time in, I think it's still called Veteran Affairs, Bob?
Yeah, I worked there for a good long time and enjoyed most of it.
Wow. No, that's really cool.
If not all.
This is also a unique recorded podcast today because we are going from coast to coast in Canada. Bob is in Charlottetown, PEI, and I'm, as you know, in Abbotsford, BC. This is the first time we've been, like, literally across Canada on the podcast. So, Bob, really good to have you here.
A lot of firsts, and I like being part of firsts. Anyway.
No, that's very, very cool. I think this is, you said your first?
My first podcast, but I've done a lot of recordings on your side of the camera.
Yes.
And so it's unique for me to be on this side.
Well, it'll be great for sure.
Thank you.
Where I wanted to start today, so you're dad's brother, but there's something that I call it somewhat unique because I'm closer to your age than you are to dad's age. And if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, because I've already had one mistake today. And that didn't take long. Dad is he 16 years older than you?
Yes, but I just want to verify that. He was 1937.
35.
35, yes. Then he is.
Because he just celebrated his 90, right?
That's right. My math is not great, but that's fun. Yeah.
So, and I think 11 years your junior, correct?
That's
I think
right.
It's like that.
Yeah.
So where my question comes from on this, Bob, because it's like one of those things that how unique, like you don't get this over like often in a conversation when the families are getting together, but do you remember? So that's your dad was 16 when you were born.
That's right.
What's your first memory of dad? Like, do you recall like that? Because you're going to be a couple of years old. Like,
that's a good question because I was, in preparation for this, I was trying to think, I'm not sure what Doug's going to ask me and so forth. So, I was thinking about that. What's my first? I don't know if we ever really can say exactly what our first recollection is, but I know just a little brief history. Your brother was my brother, your father. We're gonna get our relationships mixed up. But anyway,
no doubt.
Was born before the war, and that pesky World War II. interrupted a lot of lives.
Yes, yes.
And um,
Interesting.
so I was born 6 years after the war was over. So, yes, there was a big difference. And also, back in that age, there was a big difference in families. Families were
Mm,
very large. Ginny, my wife, so her family is 9 years. There's 9 people in it,
really?
9 brothers. And as an example, she's closer to her uncle's age than she is to her younger brother's age. So that's
So
the
you,
way
you
things
so you
were.
sh- you share that kind of thing with Jenny,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I
because
got sisters too.
mom shares that with dad too, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
like Aunt Betty was considerably older
Oh yeah,
than
but it
mom.
was a different time. It was a different era, and it presented some problems. We also had a brother
Yes.
between us who was closer to my age, but unfortunately, poor Reggie passed
Yeah.
away with polio very early on in life. But my recollection of your dad
So
was
so Bob, how much younger than Reggie were you?
let's see, I think 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
So
Um,
do you have memories of Reggie?
oh yeah,
Oh, you
oh yeah,
do. Okay.
oh
Okay.
yeah. Not strong ones, not that I could identify a face or a personality, but he was my brother,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and he was until he passed. We were pretty close, and we lived in a church, as you know, a church hall,
Yep.
and it that was we were very close, and there was a lot of things that we didn't have a lot of mutual friends or friends of different than us.
Right.
So we became friends
Okay.
for the first 5 years or so that
Oh
we knew
wow.
each other. So I do recollect small things, and he was my compadre. He was close to me, and anyway, um, that was so really there was that same gap between Reggie and and Rogers, your father, and so we were closer together,
Okay.
and your father would remember Reggie a lot better than I do because I was quite young when he passed.
Yeah. Well, I remember going on one trip, and Dad had written the epitaph that was on
Yes,
Reggie's
yeah,
gravestone. So, I mean, that like it was such a distant thing for us. First of all, the island's so far away from Toronto, and so
yeah,
much of it's very how do I say it? It wasn't even until our later years when we got grown up that we started to recollect or kind of understand that, because it's very hard to understand
yeah,
to be that. But you kind of grew up losing a brother.
yeah.
So was dad like just an adult around you guys? Like was he, or like could you connect in the sense of what you connected with Reggie as a brother?
Um, no, because really, when I started to really get into recollection, your dad was gone. He had joined the bank.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I think I was what vicinity of 7, 8 years old, and your dad was gone. He was off to
Yeah.
Toronto pursuing his banking career, and I was, for all intents and purposes, grew up as a single child.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So the recollections I do recall of your dad was I was his pain in the ass. Okay, and you have younger brothers and sisters.
You're a little guy though, like compared to
Yeah.
20-year-old man, right?
Oh yeah, but I mean
Like you're
he
4 years
lived.
old.
Yeah, he lived with us,
Yeah.
and he would
Wow.
be out to the bars, and he would be with his friends, and I would sneak into his room and steal his swizzle sticks from
You can
the local
remember
bar.
that.
I can remember stuff like that because he used
Oh,
to
that's
get
cool.
so upset. And he'd get mad at me, and then he'd go talk to mom, and he said, "Why? What's the matter with him? Keep him in his own room. Come on, you know."
Oh, that's funny.
So
That's
I
funny.
was the pesky little brother, and then uh, he was gone.
Yeah.
So we would only see each other on special occasions or
Well, he
uh,
wouldn't come back very
occasionally.
often, would he?
No, it was a different time and era then. We didn't
Absolutely.
have flights every 10 minutes down, everything, it was a train
Yeah.
mostly,
Yeah.
or a car on very, very rickety old roads and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and we didn't have we're so lucky today. The world is your oyster. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
travel anywhere. You can go anywhere, anytime. Yeah, and I look back even over my life over the
Oh, yeah.
last number of years and where I've had the opportunity to be. It wasn't the same, and
No.
I can remember even telephone calls. We talk about FaceTiming and doing things like that today.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when you look back, I remember one of the most interesting things about your brother is he would call, or your father, my brother, is he would call us on occasion from Toronto, and that was
Yeah.
a big occasion on the telephone.
Oh, yeah.
So we would spend about 10 minutes reminiscing, talking, and whatnot, and I get on, and then we'd spend the rest of this is going to cost us a fortune. This is going to cost us. We got to stop, and
Yep.
and that's still there to this day, but
Like,
that
that's not,
distances were great.
when you think of that, Bob, that's not, that's less than 50 years ago, right? Like that the long distance was a deal for
Um,
everybody, right?
yeah, well, yeah, about 50 at a good year. Yeah, that'd be good. And it progressed. When we look at our social system, look what we have today, and how
Oh, it's
fortunate
crazy.
we are. Oh man, when you look back to what we went through years ago, I'm not saying we had a hard course of it, but we had a different course of it, and things weren't as close as they are today.
No.
And even my kids can't really fathom that. What do you mean you didn't go see him every summer or do? No, I know my dad didn't have his license until he was 60.
Look at
So
that even. It's kind of a crazy, when you say
yeah,
that,
yeah,
it's like when we would go from Toronto
yeah.
to PI, that was like kind of a 2-night overnights,
Oh,
3-day
absolutely.
travel on a car.
Yeah,
And today you don't think of doing that. You can almost get there in a day if you're willing to drive hard.
easy. Yeah, a lot of
And
people can. I shouldn't say easy, but it is
yeah,
relatively.
absolutely. And
14,
and to
14 hours.
fly is it's literally a few hours. So when dad would have left there, that's why I'm so interested, because I always have it from the perspective from Ontario. I don't
Yes.
have the perspective, because it's hard for me, because I only got to know you as a man, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, holy cow, he was like 4 years old when dad left,
Yeah.
almost like in that kind of realm, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like, from then on, as you said, you were like an only child, like you were the only
Yeah.
one, right?
Yeah. And on top of that, my mother was so proud of your father. It was unbelievable. So not only was I
That's
an
cool.
only child, but I had somebody I had to live up to. I had to walk in their shoes. So
Interesting.
it was interesting. I was a little set back by it, but when I look back at it now, and I said, well, that's the way life was,
Oh
and
yeah.
accept it. And I think we could become closer in our older years than we ever did in our younger years.
That's
So,
very cool, Bob. I think that's so cool. That
yeah.
that you, because you guys have like a bi-weekly phone call, I think, right?
Well, back to Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. The box of chocolates that brought us together was COVID. And
Crazy as
really,
that is.
we think about that as one of the most trying times in our lives. Uh, but, and it was a tough time. But sometimes it's like I'm probably misphrasing this, but the Chinese say that the crisis and opportunity are similar words.
Yes.
And that's what it was. So we decided, well, let's just talk to each other.
Oh, no.
And we would have the occasional phone call, the odd email message, things like that, but we didn't have a lot. So we started with that and using your mom's iPad. And I had an iPad, and away we went. And it's just continued on ever since. And I look forward. We have it once a month, and we try to keep it religiously and just to keep the touch there. It's
Yeah.
not the same as being there,
No.
but it is similar. So
Well, it's beyond a letter, right?
yeah,
And it's beyond a phone call,
yeah,
but you can't touch somebody's hand. That's like,
no,
and so
yes,
there's definitely like, this is one of the things that's kind of fun with this podcast is that I do a lot of in-person podcasts now too. And the
yeah,
difference is still quite different.
yeah.
But it's like having this conversation with you today. It's amazing how we actually can connect through a video screen and audio. Like it's
Well, this is it. And this is we take it for granted. We're so quick to take things for granted.
oh my goodness.
Something that was so it was so Dick Tracy. And I'm not even sure if you even know who Dick Tracy was, but I mean, he was.
Yeah.
I can still remember the shoe phone and the wristwatch. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, it 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 has brought us a long way, and but it's not the same as being there
No.
and touching and hugging but you know it's a good second.
Oh yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing what you can kind of like the ideas and the thinking you can kind of get connected with. I think I'll say the emotional part, like the closeness and part is tougher, but in
Yeah.
having certain conversations, it can be like it is very much often just an audio part that you get connected with. So to me,
Yes.
it's really neat. I'm just thinking though, when I think of this, I'm thinking of you starting in Charlottetown and what you've seen and been able to do in like your like life and career. Like it's just like like as an example, we're talking technology here, and Dick Tracy. Can you imagine being able to literally put all your record collection on your phone or your watch and just listen to it instantly? Like it's it's hard to believe today that literally anything that's ever been recorded we can listen to virtually instantly.
Oh yeah. It's amazing. But it's not just that. It's the progress we've made in things like like I talked about Reggie passing away.
Yes.
Polio.
Oh.
I mean, but with the exception of some recent events, that was one of the biggest accomplishments
Oh
because
yeah.
he died 2 years before the vaccine came out for
Amazing.
polio.
I did
And
not
I
know that, Bob. I did not know
and
that.
and Rogers, your father and I have often talked about this. Dad died relatively early in life.
Hmm.
Our dad, he was in his early 60s, and he died from heart condition.
Hmm.
He had a heart attack when he was in his late 50s or some in that vicinity. And the only drug that had any influence on him was something called nitroglycerin.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Your father went through the same thing,
Hmm.
and he had a bypass.
Yep.
I had a heart attack. I survived it. These are things that we take for granted today.
Yes.
Open heart surgery, bypass, all of that stuff is just taken for granted. It's an extension of your life. And we fail to, we talk about the good old days. They ain't all that good sometimes. I
I
mean,
think
we're living in the good old days today.
didn't Sammy Davis Jr. have a saying something to the effect of the only thing good about the good old days is that they're gone.
Yes, yes.
and in many
We
ways, there's
are,
memories, obviously, but to your
yeah.
point, it's just like it's astounding
Oh,
how our world is
yeah.
today. And you said it earlier, we just take it for granted, right?
We do.
We
We
don't
do.
think about not having to pay for a long distance phone call anymore. Like that's just
Oh,
not even like it's crazy to me. It's just it's and it affects doesn't matter whether it's your car, it's your transportation, like airport wise, um, and like things that are like gone or like newspapers, like
yeah.
even reading, right? It's
I haven't read a newspaper in paper form. Oh, uh,
in a long
20,
time.
15 years. I don't know. It seems, we still get the paper because my wife likes to read the paper,
Okay,
like
okay.
but I haven't read a paper in ages. But the point, yeah, that's the point. We have fond memories of the past because we got through the past. We lived through the
Hmm.
hardships. We lived through the tough times in our lives. But um, we are very lucky
Oh,
but of what we have today. But we can't forget that it wasn't always like that.
oh no, for
And when
sure.
we, and we remember our Christmases, but there was people who died much too early
Oh yeah.
that underwent. I remember your name's Tom Douglas Gardham.
Yes.
We get into the whole business of that. But one of the greatest, I think, there's been a lot of great politicians in the world, and I think, a fluke that you ended up being called Tom Douglas, but there was a Tom Douglas,
Absolutely.
and it's what's the actor's Kiefer Sutherland's, I
Yes.
believe, grandfather, great
You're right.
grandfather, something like yeah. But he brought in universal health care.
Yeah.
Our social systems and in this country we're so lucky,
Yes.
with what we have. But that wasn't always there. And when you think
It's
back,
very true.
you know, uh, we are a fortunate civilization. That's for sure.
To your point, Bob, there is something about taking things for granted that sometimes I wonder about us in the country is we take them so for granted that we don't value them enough.
No, because we have needs that become wants. And we concentrate more on the wants. I want this, and I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be that. We have been somewhat selfish
Oh yeah.
over the years, and we don't have to look very far. I think we're fortunate here in Canada. We don't have to. We look south of the border and see what chap there wants to do it all over again, because make it great again. Well, it wasn't all that great way back then. I lived through a lot of war. When I look back, and the fortunate being not having to go to Vietnam.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, recently we've been talking about just that whole thing. This is kind of where even where when I say nothing is what it seems in the podcast, that becomes things like what comes out now is things aren't quite what we thought they were actually, especially
No,
around Vietnam. Like I recently learned on the Vietnam thing from a historian that a third of the soldiers that went to Vietnam were drafted.
hmm
Everyone else volunteered. I
yeah,
thought everyone was drafted.
no,
I
and
didn't know that.
to that point, when I was growing up, I had a very good friend, and his name. Well, he's passed. There's nothing. His name is Jamie Nicholson.
Okay.
His parents, his father was a hero of World War II.
Okay.
He's from Prince Edward Island. They owned a company called Hickey Nicholson Tobacco.
Okay.
And Jamie was a swarthy, good looking guy. He had a brother, Dave, who later became a very good friend of mine, too. He was our deputy minister of Veterans Affairs at
Oh
one
wow.
time.
Okay.
Yeah. So we would always have this closeness where I would chat. And I remember Jamie. But I remember Jamie was the Nicholsons were very athletic, strong people, and very, how will I put it, democratic. They loved, anyway, his father being, Jamie's father being a hero of World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and being a friend of mine, Jamie signed up and joined the United States forces and went
Really?
to Vietnam.
No way.
Absolutely. And unfortunately died in Vietnam.
Oh my goodness. Now that's a story I haven't heard before.
Yes. And since then, I've met a number of people and had close relationships with friends who went through the same thing. But the
Wow.
problem about war is that it sounds, we have this vision of war as
Mm.
being so wonderful
Patriotic.
and patriotic. But when you talk to, I had the advantage in my life to speak to a lot of veterans over time.
Yes.
And I never had very many of them tell me, oh, there's nothing like war. Those who fought in it
Yeah.
never, ever wanted anybody else to fight in a war.
Interesting, eh?
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's really tough that we've never been able to get past that. But Jamie was a good friend, and I remember the time he came back on leave. Just before he was posted to Vietnam, he came back and he was in Charlottetown. We were sitting in a restaurant. He was going and he had his uniform on,
Oh wow. Okay.
and yeah, and we had a lot of chat. He was so gung ho. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to win this war, and it was just youth talking. You know how youth
Oh
talk.
yeah.
We're big. We're going to do this. We're going to change the world. We're going to do all this stuff.
Yep.
And then it couldn't have been more than a year later. All of a sudden, we got to know Jamie just died.
Oh wow.
He was killed in Vietnam. Grenade came into his foxhole, and he jumped on it to save the rest of his friends.
Still heroic.
It was heroic,
Yep.
yes, but
Wow.
when you think about it, senseless.
It's tough, eh? Yeah.
And when I think about how close I was, just even living in Canada, because in the U.S. they wanted Canada to join,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and we didn't, and that was one of the most fortunate things that probably ever happened for me.
Well, I was gonna say that was very prominent in your life too, right?
Yes.
Like it was prior, really. I was too young. Like I can remember like a few things that they would show on the like ABC News at night. Um,
Yeah.
but you would have been a teenager then.
Oh, yes. And I remember it when
Oh,
I can remember going to university and having a number of university friends who were from the States, were from Maine or all over, and they came up and went to university in Canada so they could, yeah, they were draft dodgers.
yeah, yeah.
I don't blame them.
No.
I would probably have done the same thing. And now when you look back at it and you look at the number of wars that we've been
Oh,
involved in, that really, you have to ask yourself,
you
is it
do.
really,
You do
really worth
really you really have to ask yourselves self that question. I recently had a person who's in the Ukraine on the podcast, and it's so revealing to me, and
it? Yeah,
it's like I was just commenting on this the other day in that so many are there just from our leaders' perspective, right? Like we're
yeah,
just following the leaders, and we don't really. I mean, I think films have done an enormous amount to bring the horror of what war is about, from
yeah.
say Band of Brothers to Apocalypse Now. Like
Oh, yeah.
you now, like man, like why would I want to go there, kind of thing. Like and for what reason? So it's a I still think it's a hard question, and hopefully technology will take us away from that armed combat
And
where
one
individuals.
one of the one of the things about being fortunate enough to live longer, is you can kind of look back on that experience. I remember the Vietnam War as it was going on was not close to us. Really.
No.
The closest for me was Jamie
Yeah.
Nicholson. And I can still remember at the People's Cemetery in Charlottetown going to the funeral and seeing
Wow.
Marines there with their guns and the 21 or
Right.
21 gun salute.
Yeah.
We didn't even know what that was. Remembrance Day. Yes, I remember that. Yeah, we did, but it was so foreign. It was so far away.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it was like. It was so far away, and it's only after many, many years and looking back at it, and we're so influenced by the American
Oh,
culture
no
here,
question.
and Saving Private Ryan, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
You know, it. We have to be careful that we don't. We have to remember it. We have to be patriotic. We have to understand what it was about and what was going on at the time, but we can't let it. We can't glorify it.
Yeah.
And we sometimes do that to the expense, because I've walked through so many cemeteries in Europe
Oh my goodness.
and seen the headstones.
Yeah.
Blows you away. Really does.
It's startling.
Recommend. Yeah, that was from World War II, but I mean, anyway. Yeah, it is quite amazing. Anyway, I don't want to get too mundane with this.
Well, I want to come back to this, Bob, because this is kind of connected with your career too. And what I wanted to kind of go back to is how so as a kid, you're kind of growing up with, wow, my older brother, who I don't even know, he's almost foreign to me, he's gone to Ontario to be successful.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Like, as you get into your teens and grow up. And so I can remember a couple things, which hopefully will then get into you going off to school and doing, getting your education. I remember going to visit you because you were like, Bob, like, I'm like, as a kid, right? Like, wow, we're always looking up to Bob. And you had this, you may not even remember it, but I can remember you having this submarine model that was, you could see into it. And actually what got me started building models.
Yeah.
And I can remember being just so fascinated by this, like this model and how you could walk, like literally you could go, like it was a cutaway, I think, and you could go in and you could see where all the stuff was.
Yeah.
And of course, we were those little kids then that you were to Dad before he left, right? And oh my goodness, man, like what are these kids doing here? I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
I think you were working on a gas station at that point in time.
Yeah.
So what took you, like, as you start to kind of look at your career beginning to form, how did you kind of get started in like, I'll say, figuring out what you were going to do, and then going and taking that story to literally, you traveled the world with Veteran Affairs. You were for the celebration at Juno Beach, I believe, when they had the
60th anniversary of the end of World War II.
Yes. Can you take us through like how that started for you, going off from high school, going off to school, and kind of moving through your career? Like, how did that all come about?
Well, you used a word early on in what you were saying there, connected. One of the things I've learned over time is everything is connected.
No question about it.
Sometimes we don't realize why it is, or
Absolutely.
that it is, as we go. But after your brother left, or your father, after my brother left, I'm going to do this all through.
This is hilarious.
Yeah. Anyway, Dad, I moved to the church. I guess to give you a little background. When my dad was overseas, he was fortunate enough, I guess, to be with the 7th General Hospital. And he joined there. And for the first while, he was a cook. And he
Mm.
always used to say, being a cook and butchering meat made him qualified to become a medic. Okay. So he ended up being a medic in World War II.
Interesting,
So he
eh?
joined,
Interesting.
he moved back to Canada after the war, and he went to work at a sanitarium, the found sanitarium that was out by Queen Charlotte High School.
Okay,
And he
okay.
worked there. In fact, connections. I'll give you another little bit. They used to live on a place called Douglas Street. And about, a block down the road was my mother-in-law to be. And guess where she worked?
No way.
Yes,
Wow.
she worked at the sanitarium. So they would occasionally, and it was only after, I remember poor Gloria, she passed away. She had Alzheimer's.
Mm.
But in the early stages, she would often reflect back on my father and how she liked him so much, and they would often walk in the winter up to the sanitarium. And he would work as a medic, and she was a laboratory assistant or something like that. Anyway, she would bring back the memories
Oh, wow.
and connection. Your father used to be in what they call minstrel shows. And
Yes.
guess who he used to perform with? My mother-in-law's sister. Okay? So things are connected.
So, so,
Connection.
so, Grandpa, so your dad
Yeah,
worked with your mother-in-law today, Ginny's mom.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Anyway,
Wow. Okay. I did not know
after I
that.
was born, 1 month after I was born, I they moved, and my dad got a job at uh, St. Paul's Anglican Church. And
Okay.
St. Paul's Anglican Church was quite a little complex. It had a town hall, and in the corner of the town hall was an apartment. So back then, he got to have an apartment, a new apartment, got a better raise, made more money. So we moved down there, and I'm sure your dad has mentioned that to you
Mm.
on numerous occasions. So that's where I grew up. I grew up in
Okay.
the church. So when I say when we were at the church, that's what I'm referring to. Okay, so
Interesting.
those
Okay.
were the early days of life. So dad had been in the army. He came back to Canada. He spent some time working at the sanatorium and then moved down and became the sexton, which is basically
Okay.
a fancy word for janitor.
At the
And he
church.
looked at the church, and he cleaned the church, and my mother helped him. And uh, in fact, then he moved. He got a job, or he didn't move, but then you could never really get by on one job back in those days. So he
Mm-hmm.
got a second job working at the Bank of Nova Scotia as a janitor.
Okay. So I'm going to hold this for a second because he went to work at the sanatorium after the war. This is
Yeah,
Grandpa, your dad.
yeah,
Now, he also had kind of a different job in the war too, right? Because
yeah.
he went and if I'm did he help? I don't like the word clean up, but I don't know what else to say.
You're
One of the
talking
one of
about
the
Herbert
concentration.
Belson?
Yes.
Herbert Belson, yes. The 7th General, and your father found out about this, and I give him credit for following this. It was tremendous.
S- So
Like a
what?
lot of veterans who returned from the war, they didn't talk about it.
Right, right,
A lot didn't. In fact, it was a lot of them talked to their grandchildren more about their experience in the war than they did to the children,
right, right.
because it was such a trying time for them
So
that
so so Grandpa wouldn't tell you very much of what happened in the war. You were like,
he
because
he,
you weren't
he
that
would
old.
tell me this. No, he would tell me stories, right,
Yeah.
and interesting ones. But we found this out afterwards.
Okay.
The 7th General Hospital, towards the end of the war, was stationed very close. He went up. he went in through Belgium, up in through the Netherlands, and then into Germany. So the 7th General Hospital in 1944, I think, it could be wrong, came in after the liberation of the Berger-Belsen concentration camp.
Oh,
And the 7th General Hospital would have been about 20 miles away, 40 kilometers,
okay.
something like, whatever.
Yep.
Dad would, on his free time, would go down, and because he was a medic, would administer to, health-wise, the inmates, those that were still alive. And in fact, there's a
Wow.
database that has his name listed on it. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I think it was the Friends of Berger-Belsen, something like that.
Okay.
He's actually mentioned in that as somebody that would undertake to administer these people.
So,
He received, we think, accommodation for that. I don't know. It's all kind of murky because
right.
Dad didn't talk a lot about it. And sometimes the records, in fact, interestingly enough, having worked with Veterans Affairs, they kept better records in World War One than they did in World War Two. Because
Ama-
World War One was, by all intents and purposes, a stationary war, whereas World
okay.
War Two was
Yes.
a moving war. It was constantly
And like
blitzkrieg, all of that stuff.
four theaters of war too, right?
Oh,
Like it was like massive
yeah,
world. So
yeah.
so why I'm asking this question to go back to this because I think it's important in the family history, but did that help his experience doing that, which I can only imagine like some of his nightmares after that. What was that? Did that help him get work at the asylum when he came back to the island?
The sanatorium,
The
back in those
sanatorium?
days, yeah, it was tuberculosis was a very, 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 um,
Prominent
very
disease.
traumatizing
Yeah.
disease. Killed a lot of people because of his medic experience
Yeah.
and
Okay.
working in hospitals. When he came back, he could actually use surgery scissors, stuff like this. People that,
Amazing.
a lot of people that were, soldiers in the war with his grade of education and whatnot, they were, infantry or they worked in the gun crews or whatever the case. But because I don't know, he got in and worked with the 7th General Hospital, and so he saw a lot
Oh yeah.
that people who were actually in a hospital see, and we take for granted every day
Yes. Yes.
of
Yes.
what these people have to go through. No wonder they had PTSD. I don't know how they can do it, but
Really?
anyway. So he came back, and he was fortunate. He got a job. He worked in there,
Would that
but
have helped him get into the working at the sanitarium though, do you think?
absolutely it
Okay.
did.
Okay.
But then you're always like we went through, looking for a better job,
Yep.
looking for more money. And okay, so he changed careers. He
Mm.
said, all right, if I have to be a janitor, I'll be a janitor. There's nothing wrong with that. I can do this work. I get an apartment out of it. I get a better
Yep.
salary. I can look after my family better. Why not?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's cool.
So he did. Um, Back when he had his first heart attack, the problem there was no safety net
Mm.
after the war. And as you get older, you know,
Hmm.
more diseases. You didn't have a social health care system.
No. No.
I remember my mom used to her health care was to go up to the pharmacist. That's why I find now that we're opening everything to the pharmacist and say to myself, "Oh my Lord, we've come 180 degrees."
We're going right
Compared,
around.
went right around.
Circle
Anyway,
complete.
yeah. So he had a heart attack. We had to go to the hospital, but luckily it was just at the start of social health care. So he
Mm.
was what treatments he could get for his heart. He got. Unfortunately, they took his life. His heart took his life. So we were sitting there. There was no retirement plan. There was no safety net for a
Mhm.
janitor or a
Yep.
sexton or anybody like that. My mother was not a well educated, your
My
grandmother was
grandma,
not a
yeah,
well
yeah.
educated person. She had a, she was, I tell you the story about her being another Anne of Green Gables, and I can go into that sometime.
It's a very
But
connecting story.
oh yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's
Anyway, but she throughout her life she didn't have a lot of education. But one thing she had, I mentioned earlier that I was a project manager. Well,
yes.
sometimes as a project manager, you have to hound people. You've got a team working.
Oh yeah.
That was one of the things my mother had smunk. Oh
Oh, okay.
man, could she? It didn't matter. She only had about a grade six education, but boy, did she have strong abilities. And when Dad died, she was on her own,
Yep.
literally
Yeah.
on her own. Back then,
With a little
no,
boy.
yeah, a woman can't look after a church
Oh yeah.
sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember everybody was feeling so badly for us and everything, and you stay here as long as you can. A month later, I loved a lot of people in the church. Don't get me wrong, but she got a registered letter saying you got to get out. We don't want you here. We have to get somebody else.
Oh, tough.
So that was tough. But we were learning about social medicine, social looking after people. And one of the prime people we wanted, a group of people that we wanted to look after as a nation, was our veterans. So
Yes. Ah.
I was fortunate, or my mother was fortunate enough to get a widow's allowance from the Department of Veterans Affairs. There's two types of pension, or two types of monies that come. There's the widow's allowance, which we got, and pension, a pension, which the widow was of an injured
Better.
soldier.
Okay.
Okay, Dad didn't fit into that category until much later when they went through what he had gone through in the war and some of the issues. His heart, they
Yep.
believed, at the end of it was what was started as part of World War II. So
Interesting.
then she was later on became qualified for a pension, and that was good. But as a widow's allowance, if she had a dependent, which I was, they would pay an ancillary amount for me as long as I was in school.
Ah,
Okay, so connections.
connections. I can see it coming, Bob.
Okay,
I do
uh,
not know this story, so this
no,
is cool.
yeah. So as a result of that, I went through. We had our schooling that was all paid for up until university.
Yep.
Well, it wasn't the predominant reason why I went to university, but it was one of the reasons. I was just typically lazy and didn't want to go out and work. Because if you didn't go to university, you went out to work. Okay, that was it.
Okay. That was your
I,
reason. That was your reason. We all
yeah,
have different reasons, Bob. That's some of us are just a little less forward with telling about them, which is cool.
but anyway, I ended up going to university. Okay,
Did you go to UPEI?
I went to
Okay.
UPI.
Okay.
Your dad went to Prince of Wales College. It was another time, there's a whole different, not only was society changing and the social network changing,
Hmm.
but religion was changing.
Hmm.
We went through a period of time where, I look at it, we still have it today. When we go to the Middle East, we go everywhere.
Oh yeah.
It's religion. It's was one of the greatest things to happen to us as sapiens, you
Yes.
know.
Homo sapiens. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
but it was all also one of my things is our strengths are also our weaknesses, and that's exactly what happens with religion.
How deep that
And
is.
we were, you know, how do I put it? Um, we were. I remember as a kid, at 8 years old, going to school and getting beat up a bunch of Catholic kids who were going to a Catholic school 2 blocks away.
Wow. Eh?
I lived in a church, so I was Anglican, which is not
Yep.
Protestant, but I was considered Protestant.
Sure.
And the
Sure.
Catholics and the Protestants did the same to the Catholics as the Catholics did to the Protestants. So there was this animosity between the both. And the kids never knew why, but they just acted out what their parents said.
I was just gonna say, see them. We do what we see is done before us, right?
Absolutely. So
Unbelievable.
at that
Still.
time,
Yep.
they had St. Dunstan's University and they had Prince of Wales College. But there was some very educated, and a man who's alive today who was the Premier Campbell, Alex Campbell, who, along with another of modernists, forward thinkers, says this got to stop. We can't afford to keep two separate universities.
Okay. Okay.
And in all fairness, I was never always a proponent of it, but I did become part of it. They put both of those together. And actually, the first year they put them together, that was the first year I started university.
And is
At
that when
university,
they changed it to the
the
university?
University at Prince Edward Island with the Prince of Wales campus and the St. Dunstan's campus.
And that was the year you started.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
graduated, I was the first full graduating class, 4 years in business administration.
Okay.
So, and I got my degree, a BBA. And so then after that, I had to go find a job. Couldn't put it off any longer. Veterans Affairs
This
wouldn't pay.
sounds so not like you, Bob. So this is cool. How candid you're being. Anyway,
So anyway,
hear
the
this,
veterans,
kids.
the veterans allowance pension wasn't going to be there anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
Luckily, my mom did finally qualify for a true pension after they did now analyzed and did research on my dad and his condition.
Was
They
this
gave
through
me-
her persistence, or were you there now helping this as well?
She was the most persistent person I have ever met in the world.
So she passed that on to her grandkids, or some of her grandkids, right?
Oh, your sister had a friend, because Mom never told stories about her life.
Mm.
Dad was secretive. Mom was secretive. We never knew anything. We didn't know where they came. When a new dad came from England.
So interesting.
And
wow.
we found out afterwards, and I said, I started to get, once you get older, after a certain age, you start to get very interested in where did you come from and how did you get there?
Interesting.
And your sister had a friend
Yes.
who was a genealogist.
I remember her doing this. Yes.
She said to Lynn, would you, do you want me to trace your ancestry? So she got stuff on that. Mom's maiden name was Smith. Okay?
Yep. Yep.
Well, who's going to find anything about Smith? Well, lo and behold, and that wasn't that long ago. What, 10 years, 15 years ago?
It's about that time. It's like 10 years,
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah, because I remember this coming in as a Christmas present to us all.
Yeah. And here we could trace ourselves on Mom's side back to the Mayflower.
Crazy, eh?
We were a United Empire loyalists. We lived in Plymouth. Our family was
Amazing.
anyway. Long story short, but and the persistence when you read that story seemed to go through that whole family.
Oh man.
I could spend another podcast just talking about that. But anyway,
so grandma's now got the pension she should have had in the first place.
Absolutely.
And you're coming out of university, which is ending what the funding you were getting, right? Because you were in school. So now the pressure's on?
Yeah. So I had to get a job. So I worked a little bit, extended summer jobs, stuff like that. And then I got on with the provincial government just by luck. Everything was very political back there, and we were not. We were close to a conservative family. Mom
Yes.
was,
Yes.
but that didn't get us the job. But anyway, I got working. I got a job as a sales tax auditor, of all
So,
things,
so you started working in the provincial government of Prince Edward Island.
as a sales tax auditor.
That's where I started
Was it?
in Ontario.
Connections.
I started in the Ministry of Transportation. That's
Yeah.
out of university. I didn't know that you started provincially. Now, you also had a friend who's still here that's part of the legislature as well, right? In the past, dad
Uh,
dad was really close to her, and your mom was too, or grandma.
Helen McPhail.
Yes,
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 her husband Lloyd
yes.
was a very strong conservative, and he was minister in the provincial government, several ministers,
Okay.
and then they became lieutenant governor. He and
Yes,
Lloyd
that's right.
McPhail. Yeah, they were a very close family, and Helen never, nor Lloyd ever forgot us. Like there was levels
Yes.
in society, right?
Yep.
So we were the poorer working class, but she never treated us like that. She had a friendship with Mom that dated way back to when your dad was
Yes.
in the hospital and stuff like that. And
Helen
Helen McPhail would be close
McPhail.
to
Helen
100.
McPhail. Yes.
Yes.
No, that's very okay.
So she was a very, uh, I don't know. But when I joined the government, it was a liberal government, so I don't know if there was anything work. But politicians are politicians, and Lord knows how they work together on certain things, and then maybe that was an influence. I don't know.
Yeah,
But I work, yeah. So, and she's still a close friend.
yes.
She's, yeah. And your dad's 90.
Yes.
She is got to be very close to 100.
Oh my goodness, Bob. But yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is amazing.
Oh,
Okay.
wonderful memories.
I'm glad we got a shout out to Helen McPhail on the
Yeah.
podcast. Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
now you're going into the sales tax provincially. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and so I would audit. I would go out and do books and check and make sure people were paying the proper amount of sales tax.
Okay.
Businesses predominantly. I also had as the time worked through an interesting story. I was a sales tax collector. So a
Oh,
few people would owed sales tax but didn't pay it. And I remember I would have to go and chase them down along with another chap, and we would say, okay, now you have to pay your sales tax, and we'd make
oh
sure he
wow.
had the right amount. Okay, okay. Oh, it was quite an interesting
Just a
job.
job everybody wants.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody's your best friend.
Oh
Yeah,
my
right.
goodness, man.
And when I worked with the income tax department, I'd go in for a yearly checkup and tell the doctor I worked for the income tax department. Immediately get a rectal exam. So that was so that's how well you were like, whether I needed it or not.
Oh
Anyway,
my goodness.
anyway. So I was a sales tax and a collector, and I can remember one particular chap was quite difficult to find. He had a little business. It was almost out of his back garage, and the entrance to it, he could see you coming, and his garage had a back door.
Uh
So we would start down one side. Boom! Oh no, closed for business. It's gone. So I said to the guy that was with me, I said, Ray, next time you go to the back door. I'm going to come in the front door. Boom! He runs into Ray.
oh my.
Anyway, we finally collected our taxes, but
Oh
it
wow.
was interesting. It was a different time of life. So then it was interesting because a lot of the people in the federal government around that time were retiring. They were World War II veterans and they were coming
Okay.
to the end of it. So the federal government was in very much need of income tax auditors and other people.
Okay. Okay.
So strangely, connections. my brother-in-law, Dave. I don't know if you ever met
Yep,
Dave or
yep,
Pat.
yep,
Yes, you, I
yep,
think you did. Yeah.
yep, absolutely.
We both worked for the provincial government. He was in land tax. I was in the land revenue, and I was in sales tax. We both applied for these jobs in the federal government in Ottawa, and they were income tax trainees. What we were.
Yes.
So we
Okay.
went for a 2-year course,
Oh,
and that
wow.
got us up. That got us to Ottawa, and there from Ottawa, well, we moved ahead, and
Well, we visited you a few times in Ottawa. You were in Ottawa for a few years, right?
yeah, yeah, we lived for a few years there, and then we moved out west. Lived a couple of years out west. That's where our daughter was born, our firstborn,
Okay.
and strange, and then moved back to Ottawa, and both our sons were born in Ottawa.
Well, I was there when Andy was born,
That's right.
and I can
And a month.
remember a very, I'll say, impromptu conversation I had with you about leaving school
Yeah.
because I was in the music world and that's what I wanted to do. And you were my well, I'll say a good sounding board. So I do remember. Do you remember that? Probably.
Yes.
Maybe you don't remember it, but it was like at
No,
Roost.
no, I remember it very closely because I remember, and you probably didn't know this, but your dad gave me a call and said, Doug's having some issues, and would you have a chat with him? And I don't think our chat was what he was expecting. Anyway,
All of those chats, just so you know, Bob, in my life, even at work,
yeah,
often went in the direction that was not intended by the person that was kind of organizing. Because I had a few of them at work too. But all in all, it all turned out very well. But
it did.
I remember Andy being born because I think we had to come over to your house, if I remember. Laura and I. She was up visiting.
Yeah.
So, well, that's another lifetime. And I'm interrupting your story here. So,
Well, the interesting thing, when my dad moved from the sanatorium to St. Paul's Church, I was a month old, and I think that was the same. We had to wait until Andy was a month old because before we could move back to PEI. So
ah,
things are different, but things are the same.
yes.
It's amazing.
There's
So
a
anyway,
there's a French statement. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. And you probably know what that means.
the more things
Change, the more they stay the same.
stay the same.
And
Yeah.
I'd love to say that I'm bilingual, but that's just about the only thing in French that I know, and that came
Well,
out of a Rush song.
yeah. Well,
But
it
it's
is.
very true.
It's very true. Yeah. So then that was my change, and we moved back at that time to Charlottetown. Where was I? Veterans Affairs Canada connection.
So
The
did you
circle was made.
you move back from Ottawa to join Veteran Affairs?
It was the first department that
Okay.
was ever moved. The head office was ever moved outside of the Ottawa region.
So you were already in Veterans Affairs in Ottawa.
No, I was with Revenue Canada Taxation.
Okay, right, okay.
And that's where I was. And I applied on a number of jobs. And as you can expect, a lot of people didn't want to move to Prince Edward Island.
Oh yeah,
Surprise, surprise, little
absolutely.
bump hole in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And so they did everything in their power,
Not to go.
yeah, to try to change it. And they never did.
Oh,
Because
cool.
we had a veteran, a very well decorated multi amputee Minister of Veterans Affairs from Prince Edward Island who was not going to take no for an answer. And
Okay.
he, along with Pierre Trudeau, moved the department and the Veterans Affairs to Charlottetown, PEI. A lot of people were upset, but I wasn't, because I
No.
eventually got a job. It took me a long time because people kept saying you were not qualified, you're not qualified. But that was people who didn't want the department to move.
Well, there you
So
go. Yep.
there's another story. Anyway, so I moved down, and interesting story. The first day I started work, I walked in, and my boss gave me this report about the how people felt about being moved to Prince Edward Island. And I went through it, and it was just abysmal.
Oh
And
my
I
goodness.
said to myself, "Oh my God, what have I done? I've joined a department. Everybody wants to kill each other, and what's going to happen here? Oh my Lord!" Anyway, I survived, moved along, and I must admit it was one of the best moves I ever made in my entire life.
Well, didn't you
And they were,
you flourished, didn't you? Like,
I flourished. Yeah, I worked in. I went from being a tax auditor to becoming an internal auditor, and I worked for some very wonderful, wonderful people. Taught me a tremendous amount. I just think about them now every once in a while and then what they did for me. And a lot of people think that civil servants are pretty mundane. They said they don't, they do the same job over and over. I was lucky because I had enough interest in things that I could move from one position to another. And to give you an example, when I was in university, we bought a huge mainframe, one of the first ones from the University of New Brunswick. So they moved it over to Prince Edward Island, and they said, "Well, anybody that's in business administration should know how to use a computer." Nobody knew. Half of us were spelling it with K, you know. So we didn't know. So they gave us a course. And back then, I think I look at what we do today, but back then,
oh
the
yeah.
only way you could really program it, and the only person that did me was a very good friend of mine that I later in life who used to program them by putting wires
Oh,
around in the different nodes
unbelievable. Yeah.
to program the computer. But we had an innovation called uh, cards, computer cards. So they would punch holes in it.
Unbelievable.
So
Yep.
our job was to do it in the class was to create a program that would do simple interest. I mean simple,
Yeah.
10% of 400, we could do in our
Yep.
heads.
Yep.
So I said, what the heck's the use of this thing? You know, I remember one day I went through, it was a laborious task in these key punch.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you ever went through that.
First year
I had a
university.
whole big box of cards.
Oh yeah.
Yes, you would remember. You would have been there. I was walking to the computer where we were going to put it in, and I tripped, and the damn things went all.
That was the nightmare, right? That was
That
the
was the
nightmare.
nightmare.
Absolutely. And then
So
you
that
like,
was my first involvement with computers, and I'll tell you, I just could not see it. No,
well,
this
you
is not
weren't
a place
alone.
for me. Yeah. Anyway, later, after when I got into income tax and Revenue Canada, um, my brother-in-law Dave, he we had to go through a test, and where you have the ability or the talent to become a computer programmer. Well, he very well did.
Oh,
And
okay.
at the end of our course, we had to make a choice. Where do you want to go? You want to, you couldn't stay in Ottawa, only certain people. And one of the big groups that were staying in Ottawa were the computer programming group. I was abysmal. They, no, you'll never be a computer programmer, so get lost. And that's how we ended up in Edmonton.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I
Okay.
learned a lot of stuff through that. And it was good. It was
No
a
doubt.
good, some things happen to you that are given to you, are made you do things.
Oh yeah.
And that were the greatest things that ever happened. So anyway, with all that, um, I didn't have a real desire for computers. But when I got into Veterans Affairs,
Yes.
uh, computers were becoming much more popular. They had the huge mainframes, which I wouldn't even go near, but they had these little things called personal
Yeah.
computers.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember one time we were down in the States on a trip with Ginny's parents, and I went through a store, and they had this thing called a Commodore 64,
Yep.
and I said, "Hmm, it's interesting." So I bought one. Had a little extra money. They weren't real expensive.
Yeah.
bought one. Well, that started me on the line to go through to where I eventually became a project manager of health systems, and
Wow.
we built. But throughout that wasn't where that's where I ended up. But they became very good for me because I was able to take at that time the mainframers were the key to the organization, but the model the little personal computers were
Yeah.
just starting.
Yep.
And I remember buying one for the internal audit group and working with it, getting an IBM with floppy disks, a whole bit. And so then
So
I
you'll remember because I had this the other day. You'll remember Lotus 123. No?
oh yes, but it wasn't called Lotus 123 back then. Okay, and it was
Because
a
I brought
spreadsheet.
that up. I brought that up to a person the other day, and they'd never heard of Lotus 123. And I said,
Oh
"But
no,
you know Excel from
yes.
Microsoft, right? And which it what it became. But that's kind of where I started in the PC world with Lotus 123. And you
Well,
could do
I started before that,
yes.
and one of the jobs I had in internal audit over the years was to create their annual plan or their
Oh,
5 year plan.
aren't you lucky?
Well, really, a 5 year plan was just a spreadsheet with all of your resources and all of the
Yep.
organizations and who had to do what, blah, 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 blah. I did it on my Commodore 64 with I can't remember the name of the program, but it was
A
for
spreadsheet.
Commodore 60. It was a spreadsheet. Yeah.
There you go. So,
And
Bob,
that was
before
just starting when Lotus 123 came
there,
out 6 months later.
and
Anyway,
I thought Lotus 123 was so cool compared to what you
yeah,
would do on a spreadsheet, but to where we're going. But so I want to pause here because you've mentioned Ginny a couple of times.
yes.
So this is Aunt Ginny. So I thought it would be kind of neat is she's come into your picture, but you haven't described how did you meet Ginny? So you've mentioned her mom working with your dad,
Yeah,
my grandpa, but how did she come into your world?
that is a very interesting story. The
I don't think I
connection,
know this story, but anyway.
no. Well, I told you as at a month old,
Yes.
we went to live in the church hall. There was shortly after that, Ginny's parents used to live up on Douglas Street in the same area that your dad lived.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, and her father, Reed McKenna,
Yeah.
who was the most fantastic man I think I've ever met. Um, he was back from the war. He had done a number of jobs, and his father-in-law owned a bakery.
Oh, okay.
And guess where that bakery was? About a block and a half from the town hall, or
The,
from the parish hall
yes.
where I lived. Okay, so she grew up about a block and a half away from me. At the church,
So you say she. You said she. Who's
the
she?
whole family,
Oh, okay.
moved from Douglas Street area
Oh, to there.
down to an
Ah.
apartment above the bakery.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, similarities, connections. There was a hill, but we as a bunch of kids used to um, slide on toboggans and sleds. Guess who used to slide on the toboggans and sleds with us? I didn't know her. She was just a girl. I
Yes.
I might have known her,
But you're pretty young.
but I had no. Yeah, I was pretty young. I didn't have a whole lot of recollection. And things kind of went their way and so forth, and then they set up. back then I went to a model school. She went to Notre Dame Academy. No connection. Then we went through our elementary years, and then we went through our. She went to I think it was Birchwood. She went to, yeah, and I went to Queen Charlotte, which was junior high. No connection. Then, as part of getting these religious institutions
Yes.
schools together, they created a school that brought Birchwood High and Queen Charlotte High together, those people, into Colonel Gray High School. And guess who's in my class? And you're going to say, oh, that's for their high school sweethearts. No. No. She was in my class. How do you do? Nice to meet you. Yeah, thank you very much. She had her friends. I had my friends. So forth. The years pass. I go through university. In my last year of university, oh, she's changed. How are you? I'm working at a gas station as a pump jockey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we used to frequent this place called Gentleman Jim's. Gentleman Jim's was a bar.
Okay.
Okay? She was there one night. I was there one night. Oh, how are you? Mind I drive you home? Okay. And that's the story.
That's the beginning.
Well, it was and it wasn't. The beginning was the sledding hill. And
Yes, when you were young.
Yeah.
See, I did not know that story. Okay. That is kind of cool.
So the year I graduated from UPI,
yeah,
in October, we were married.
So you got married the year after you graduated from university?
Not even a year after.
No, like the fall.
I graduated in 1973.
Oh, okay.
Or was it a year? Dates get a little mixed up now, but anyway, yeah. Anyway, we were married. I remember the date, October 13th. It was 1973, 74.
Wow. That is okay.
That's where we came from.
And so had you already started to work at the provincial government in Prince Edward Island then?
That was a condition on us getting married. I was going to get a job.
Okay.
And then we had to find a place to stay, which was not always so simple.
No, sure enough.
But her father just happened to have a whole bunch of duplexes. And we went to live in one of the duplexes.
So I have to tell this little story before you get to living in the duplexes because because Reed was a builder, right?
Yes.
And one of the times that we came to visit you, we got introduced to the family.
Yeah.
And Ginny's brother Jim had built what we would have called at one point in time building a fort in the backyard. That's how we would describe it, right? And so they took us out to see it. It was no fort. It was a 2-story house.
Absolutely.
With everything. We'd never seen, as kids, had never seen anything like it. It kind of like instant idol, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's one of the I'll say highlights that we remember from one of the visits that we would have been. I don't know that we would have been teenagers yet when that happened, but
you were close.
But it was so interesting seeing that. Like it just took kids building houses, forts, to a whole nother level. So now we'll turn back to you're looking for a duplex that Ginny's dad had or was available.
He had several, and he had built them. And guess who helped build them? Jim.
Oh, okay.
That's where he built. That's where he got his skills, and he is a very, very skilled carpenter. Probably the most skilled. In fact, where I'm sitting today is the house that he built.
How crazy is that?
One of the many houses that he built.
Well, I just remembered the awe we felt when we saw that house. Like, I mean, I'm going back 50 years, Bob. Like that's a long
And
time, but it's still very memorable. So you got a house, and I'm bouncing around here a little bit, but this is prior to your moves first to Ottawa, right? This is like,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Mhm. So we lived there for a few years. Then we got the job in Ottawa,
Right.
moved there.
So now I'm gonna bounce us now back to you've moved back to the island,
Yes,
and now you're in Veterans Affairs, the
yes.
computer world, because what kind of amazed me is, and this kind of comes in and out of my memory, but you started to travel the world at some point
Yep.
on many different things because of the things that you were involved with, and so that's
Yes. It,
that's what I'm really intrigued now about. Like we kind of were talking about your young friend, Nicholson, Jamie Nicholson,
yeah,
or James Nicholson, Jim Nicholson,
James. Yeah.
going to Vietnam early in the beginning. And I find it really interesting how you came back to work actually in Veterans Affairs, and
For
then
his brother.
for his brother. Oh my goodness, Bob, this is kind of crazy.
I know. And Dave passed away a few years ago, and he was one of the very major influence in my life.
Oh wow.
Yes.
So
So,
when did you start to get more involved in, I'll call it, the website, the recording of experiences, the celebration, not, I won't say the celebration, the memorial for events that happened in the war with veterans. When did that start to take place?
well, it's interesting because a guy who just despised computers, thought they were of useless for anything, all of a sudden became a
The guy.
major proponent. So my first
So Bob,
influence
when you
was
say
to
that,
go.
Bob, when you say that, I'm interrupting you here, I know, but did you really think they were no good, or just like I just don't
Well,
want them to?
certainly the big mainframe computers
Oh,
were
okay,
just scary,
a waste.
extremely scary.
Yeah.
If you knew nothing about them and didn't have a desire to
Yeah.
use them. So,
Okay.
but the personal computer was probably the PC was probably the not just computer, personal. The
Right. Right.
personal was the key word there.
Yes. Yes.
And then when I got the little Commodore and started seeing what I could do with it,
Aha. Yeah.
then we said, well, my boss said to me, he said, gee, that was a great plan you did there. And you did, yeah. I said, well, you changed this changed here. Oh, yeah. He was, wow, amazed. We should get one for the division. I said, sure.
Ah. There we
So
go.
we got IBM PC. So then I started being, well, if I could do that with a comp, what can I do with this? So we started finding little jobs. Oh, okay. Well, I grew up and I was, first of all, I was in marketing and then slash accounting when I was in university.
Hmm.
So I had a kind of a financial background. And I moved over to our finance department from internal audit and went in to take over a job. And we were doing internal, it was a kind of a similar internal audit, but we had to check things. And we were in a situation where if we were making expenditures, huge millions of dollars of expenditures on behalf of veterans, and it was all being done by a the mainframe computers. They did the big systems, did all the work.
Hmm.
So if we ever wanted to get information, we had to go to the people that ran the computers,
Yes. The gateway in.
the gateway in. But then we never knew how they got that information. We
The
just were expected to receive it and
yes.
accept it. And this is fine. Now, someone else you want.
The priests of the
So
mainframe.
yeah. So then about this time, was a little firm out in Vancouver.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. They had big tapes that they would store information on about all the systems. Well, they developed a unit that PC computer could use to read those tapes. Ah,
Sign me up.
wow, sign me up. So I talked, and we ended up, and we bought one, and we got, nothing was easy
No.
because you had to break the regime that had developed,
Yep.
the people. So you were a progressive threat. So it was quite a time getting through, and finally, and I had a few good people who supported me at a senior level and said, yes, you do that. And so I got the money and what we needed. So what we ended up doing was taking these big tapes. Our major mainframe was over in Moncton. It was being run by Blue Cross. They weren't too interested in giving us the tapes, but they were our tapes. When I say our, Veterans Affairs. So we started doing our sampling job through this. And it was, I can remember, I had to take part with a group of people. They were wonderful, wonderful people, hardest working people I ever worked with. But I remember one lady was extremely bright, and I said, we're going to start using computers here. And she said, oh, she wasn't too happy about that. So we got one in, and I was showing her how to use it. And I said, this thing is called the mouse. Oh, she takes the mouse, puts it on the floor, and starts trying to push at it with her foot.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Well, isn't that how you make it work? That's how I use my sewing machine. Anyway, so, okay. I was thinking about it, and I remember one poor chap, he's passed away now, but you talk about Lotus 123. That's was where I'm in the finance department, and these people didn't know what a spreadsheet was. They knew what a ledger was because they used it, okay? They didn't know what a spreadsheet was. So I taught them, and we got it. We had to do this big spreadsheet. I said, okay. I said, what happens when you change that number there? Oh.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Went in and with whiteout started. Yep. So you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Because
So it was an uphill grind. And we look at it now and we say, oh, my. It's so funny. But
you know what I think is interesting, Bob, here is because I can remember doing the same thing. And I think your mindset is similar. But for many, I don't think it works this way. And what you saw was a way of, well, this is going to have the time it takes to do this, or make it a quarter of the time. It's going to make it way easier for me to do this, and it's going to be right. And I can remember kind of feeling the same way. Is like I never had the ideas, well, if this comes in, I won't have a job. Like I just never thought that way. And so you don't either in in how you bring these new things in, because it was like I can remember the first time I saw Lotus, and it's like exactly what you described. It's almost identical, where they would show, well, I was actually working at GM at the time, and they were rubbing out a ledger which had their test times in it. And you said, but if you have the spreadsheet, it's almost the exact same story. And it's like, oh, but I don't know that I like that. And then you kind of go like, how you're not going to like that. Like, it's like,
or the other one, we don't do it that way around here. How many times have you heard that?
Right? Yeah, because then the list comes. Then it was like, yeah, but what about this? Or what about this? Or what about this? And then and it would be so like, well, that's easy. That's what happened. And it would be so easy often to answer those questions because you know just how much easier all this stuff is going to become. Wow. I'm glad you're telling me this because it's like very, very similar, and you've been through the same kind of like things that mindset way. So I'm going to shift gears because I still want to come back to some of the things you did kind of that were kind of big things for Canada.
I'm leading up to that. So okay. This is the start. So you see how I got my start and how we moved things.
So I'm going to pause you there. And I want to go back because one of the first times that you went, I believe, to Ontario was to a wedding.
Yes. And the wedding was your mothers and fathers.
So, do you remember very much of that? Because, like, that to me would have been like the first time you left the island, I'm going to guess. And like you went to Ottawa, obviously when you're considerably older. But what was that experience like? Because times had changed quite dramatically after that.
Well, we could only get there on one type of transportation, a bus. Couldn't take a train. My dad didn't have a car, so we bused there
You bus to the wedding?
to the wedding.
No way.
Yes,
Oh, I didn't know that.
mom, dad, and myself. And when we
Oh,
got there, your aunt and your uncle was a fisherman, or
Uncle Leighton
Uncle Leighton
and
had a
Aunt Betty.
cottage.
Yes.
Now you're going to ask me, what do I remember? I'm about a 12-year-old, 10-year-old. I can't remember. Wasn't very old. Ceremonies meant nothing to me. I could care less.
Absolutely.
The food was great. All right.
Okay, you
All
remember that?
the grown ups were doing what the grown ups did. So your Uncle Leighton, put us up in one of his cottages on the lake.
Okay. Okay.
And the most fundamental memory that I have of that wedding was that's where I learned to love fishing with my dad.
No. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. So we had a little cottage and had a little dock at it, and we would go
Uh,
out there every day that we weren't involved in some kind of ceremonial thing for the wedding
and you went fishing.
and fish.
Oh, man.
Sunfish. And that was really a pivotal part of my life because after we got back, my dad loved fishing so much and I loved it. That became our thing to do. Like some
Oh,
families
wow.
are golfers, some
Yep. Yep.
handicraft, business, whatever. My dad and I, we fished.
Oh, that's so cool. I, I,
It
I
was,
did not know that at all. I didn't know you
yeah,
took a bus there. How many days did it take to take the bus?
oh God, I can't remember now.
Did
Time only becomes important as you get older.
did you did like did
Time
it?
when you're a kid just lasts from moment to moment. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
what, it took us a long while. I can't remember exactly.
Did it seem forever?
It took us forever. There was no washrooms on the bus. We stopped at every bloody little. The roads were terrible.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
We would stay in the motels. I guess I can't remember
Oh, you did
fully.
stay.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I think we had. I don't. We couldn't make it one trip. I don't
No,
think
like that would be
it wasn't.
forever.
We had gone up. I think a couple of times by bus, and then one of the final times we went up was with Dad had got a license and learned how to drive, and we took the car up.
But that was post wedding.
That was supposed to.
Okay, so
So
that is okay. That's a big moment here. That's I did not know that, Bob. That is
yeah.
kind of a
So
crazy.
and we went up and oh, it was quite a job, quite a
And then you had to go
yeah.
home.
I had to do the same thing the other way. Yeah,
Oh
but
no,
it was wonderful because
that's a pretty
I
special.
saw, it opened my eyes. I saw that there was some place up in Prince Edward Island,
Oh yeah,
and
no, for sure.
and
So
yeah.
was it different seeing your brother, or do you even remember? And the woman he was going to marry, or had you met them before?
I'm not sure, but I think your mom and dad came down to the island.
Oh, because Grandma Peg, I think, came with them. Is that right?
I can't remember if it was before or after the
Yeah,
marriage.
I don't remember. Yeah.
I can't remember. I was pretty young.
No, because I was going to
And,
say that it's probably like for you, it was just like, oh, somebody I don't know who they are, and it's just what it is, right? You're 10, you're 12
well,
years old.
really, basically, you asked me about your mother left more of an impression on me than your father.
Okay. Oh,
Put
that's
it
kind
that
of, yeah, yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
She was always so nice to me. Not that your dad wasn't,
Yeah, yeah.
but dads are dads and men are men
Yep,
and
absolutely.
women, you know. So things were, but no, we all I
Oh, that's
remember
cool.
is we hit it off,
No, no,
and
that's really cool.
yeah,
Well, I love that thing about fishing with your dad, Bob. That is very, very cool. So I'm going to
well,
switch us back to your line of where you are, like with Veterans Affairs, and
yeah,
how that continued on now. Because
well,
I've got a picture of you fishing with Grandpa, or and it's like that'll stick in my head now. That is very cool. I'm glad you shared that. That was very. I didn't expect that one at all.
uh, shows what happens when you don't stay in touch, and I'm as guilty as you are, but
my
we're
my
all,
my eyes all welled up on that one.
yeah.
So so yeah, back to the island. Now you're in Veterans. You got the computer going. You've kind of brought in a lot of the things that
So yeah,
you're
life
like.
is moving on. So the department is, or there was a big decision. There was a period around in the mid '90s where a lot of big systems were being built, and they required a lot of people from all different disciplines.
Mm,
I was in finance. I had an understanding of how computers work, particularly from the PC side of things. So they needed a representative on a task force
mm,
for a new benefit delivery system. I went up and I said, that sounds like interest. That might be quite interesting.
wow,
So I went up to my boss and I said, I don't know who's interested in going to work from finance and that, but can I put my name in?
cool.
And so things, I don't know what all went jiggled around. The next thing you know, yeah, they said, come over. So it was only a small team. It was a task force to ensure that our systems would be built this way. And we had big companies involved, IBM, big
Yeah.
consulting companies, and that's when there was a lot of things blew up because of the expenditures that were
Oh
made.
yeah.
90% of it was because the people that were in charge didn't understand what a system was, although
Yeah.
they operated and they didn't understand computers. And
Yeah.
it was a shame. But a lot of them got taken advantage of by the senior
Yep.
consultants.
Absolutely.
Some very large organizations, and that wasn't something that didn't happen regularly elsewhere. Just because of the government, you heard it more. But anyway, so I went in and I was leading the
Wow.
kind, giving us some of the finance advice and learning about the system, what it was going to do and how it was going to be done and so forth. So then one of the things I suggested, I said, you know what we should do? This was going to change our whole benefit delivery system right from this district office all the way up to head office and vice versa. I said we should build a model office. Get some of the material that they're talking about here. They're telling us what they're going to do and so forth. And I said that would be a good thing to do. But at that time, I was there doing, spreadsheets left, right, and center. And so somebody came up and said, well, you know a little bit about PCs, and that's what the whole thing is going to be based on. And they were moving from great, huge mainframes
Yeah.
down to these individual type servers, connected servers, and everything like that. Um, why don't you build it? Well, I said, I need somebody that's a good programmer. So I got to mate a friend of mine. We haven't seen each other. We're both retired now, but he was the most fantastic programmer. John McFadden was his name. He was the most
Okay.
fantastic programmer I have ever met in my life.
Oh
Things that
wow.
he could do with the knowledge he had. So he was a bit rough, but we got along. We just got along
Yeah.
like that. And I'd suggest it, and he'd build it, and we'd work on it. And we had the whole system built
Oh.
in this model office. And we had people coming in from the districts and the region, and they were just blown away. They couldn't believe it. And
Oh wow.
then there was an interesting thing happened around this. Oh, well, it was before that, but really became into, I guess, notice was something called the internet. And then there was something that
Oh,
became known as um, websites.
yep, yep,
Okay,
yep.
so that's kind of interesting.
They haven't always been here?
No. Anyway, I started
Oh, my
looking
goodness.
into them, doing a little bit of work around them, and then I said, you know what, this department should have a website because they're starting up. They were starting up in small little departments and big departments and so forth. And it was the electronic way of providing information to people.
Right on.
Who knows? You know, who knew what it was? So I, again, had a wonderful boss.
Makes a difference.
Told him he went to talk to an ADM, an assistant deputy minister, who was a real progressive.
Oh, good. Okay.
And he said,
Bill.
I like that. I
Ah,
like that. How much do you need? Well, I said, I think I can, you know, I was getting, I said, I think probably put it together for maybe 10,000. Now, I'm at the time working on a multi-million-dollar project.
yep.
You would think $10,000 was,
It wasn't enough.
was, anyway, we
Yep.
built it. And I remember we launched it in 1996, Remembrance Day.
Okay.
And it was something the kids loved. So we set up a bit of computers and everything, and they came in. And so I, at that time, started getting ideas about it. I'm bragging, and I shouldn't. I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to.
It's what you
This
did.
is this is what I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we had, I'm not sure if you remember or know, but from World War II and some of Korea, the graves of World War II veterans were administered and maintained by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission.
Okay.
And they looked after the graves of all those who died during the war from all the Commonwealth countries.
Okay.
So in Canada, that was, remember the numbers right, 60,000 war dead in World War One and 40,000 in World War Two. It's 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was 110,000. So change in there. And everything was written down and on paper. So a Canadian company, and this was when I listened to Carney and Ford say, we've got the smartest people in the world. Well, we do. There was a group at Ottawa that took that paper system and transferred it over to an electronic system
Oh, cool. Okay.
being run on mainframes.
Yep. Yep.
So you could keep all the details in
Oh,
there. One of the big things that we found with the websites quickly developed is that we could program them to access databases.
yes. Cool.
While we were a partner with them, Canada, with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, we didn't actually physically have the data other than what was in books of remembrance in the Houses of Parliament. In the
Okay.
House of Parliament. Okay. I knew that there was this electronic version. So I said to one of my bosses, I said, we should try to acquire the Canadian portion of this.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we can take it and put it on our website and have it as a searchable website. So
For
if you
anyone.
have a
Yes.
problem with anybody in the world.
Yep.
So I said, well, he said, yeah, that's interesting. So I went to the assistant deputy minister and suggested, he contact his equivalent in the War Graves Commission and see if we could acquire. Still, I love the British. My dad's British. I'm British to the core. All
Mm.
that stuff. But they still had a colonial attitude.
Right.
And why should we do this for you?
Yes. Yes.
Although we're the Commonwealth Workers Commission, we are resident in Canada or in the United Kingdom, and this is ours.
We like our controls.
So we like our control. Okay. Anyway, so one time, so the ADM said, "Why don't you go over
Aha.
and have a chat?" So went over and we talked and discussed things. And I remember one guy, he was kind of nice at something. I can't remember what he was. Companion of the order or something. Anyway, and he was a pretty stuffy chap. And he had no, how would I put it, resistance in principle. He understood that we had contributed and that really was our data. But he wasn't up to letting us have it. He
Right.
said, go chat with our technical. So I ran into some similar problems with them. Then they put me on to I remember the guy's name was Murphy. And he was the nicest guy.
Oh.
And he said, "Do you have this such and such a device?" And I said, "No, I don't think so. Something indicative." He said, "Here." And he gave me a tape, in a big tape. He said, "You can buy this. You don't tell anybody where you got this." And away I went. Got what he was talking when I got home. Bang! The whole database was there.
Everything was there.
And all I had to do was program it for Canadians. My programming friend that had worked with the model office for the benefit side of things,
Yes.
he developed the program that would be, and that became um,
Amazing.
eventually became Heroes Remembered database.
Ah.
But they moved it even further along after I left there, and people could upload family information, and they can still to this day, you can access information and upload information about loved ones that were killed overseas.
Well, that's
So,
very cool.
oh, it's still up there today. It's changed. A lot of things have changed on it, and I've had to put a lot more bells and whistles on it than I ever even considered, thought about. But so that then led me into another level. I had development there. I got closely knit in with our remembrance group and some other people. And then as we started to develop and move um, the website ahead, one of the things we used to have were ceremonies to commemoration summer for various battles and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. Okay, so they said, I said to them, we can. You talked to earlier about the podcast, how
Yes.
it goes, right? So they had a program where you could transmit video.
Mm-hmm.
It was level 1. I remember at the time. I can't think of the name of the program now. And I had been using it and trying it and whatnot. I said, you know what? We could take the information because we would have to,
Yep.
just to get the information back to Canadians, took forever,
Yep.
right? In the past. And most
Yep.
people didn't even bother reading it. So I started joining these commemorations, which again brought me to places like, Europe,
Yeah.
Korea, the Korean Wars, did a little time in Japan. Anyway, and we were, back then, Canada was on the forefront of video,
Yep.
and the internet. Not so in Europe. In fact, I remember going into one hotel and they didn't even have a phone line. And what we had to do was actually do the video and send it back to Canada over telephone lines.
I'm
And
glad.
yeah. Now I look at how everything is so connected.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So
And
anyway,
getting more so.
yeah. So then when I was coming, so that brought me along. I had some wonderful times. I met some beautiful, wonderful people. I also had some one guy that I worked with who was phenomenal. Um, uh, Damn, his name just went right out of my head, which I knew it would be. But anyway, he used to be a broadcaster, and he joined our communications department.
Oh, cool.
Uh,
Yeah, that's good.
it'll come to me shortly. And he was very innovative too. And before the internet and any of that, he used to go around and interview veterans of
Aha.
the various wars.
Yes.
So he had this humongous vault of videotape
Unbelievable.
of veterans. And he had, it was so good, it was so great that he had other people that worked with him that did the interviews. And it was Lauren Fevens is his name, from Nova Scotia.
Lauren
Fevens. And
Stevens.
Lauren was he was a DJ back in the 60s. And they
Okay.
even had an acquaintance with Anne Murray at one point in time.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
and he was just one of the nicest people you would ever want to meet. And God rest his soul, he's passed now. But he had this idea and he took it to the end. And then I piggybacked on it when we started using the
Oh,
uh, internet. And I said, well, why don't we convert these to the internet? And they're there now. And then that
man.
just led to one fellow and one thing after another. And this guy from New Brunswick said, you know what? I got a bunch of audio tapes here. He says, I interviewed veterans when I
Oh.
was taking my master's or doctorate. He said, I have one from the Boer War.
Oh.
He was Australian. He's lived here in Canada for a while, and he talks about there's an Australian film. Oh, he made years and years ago about what was it? About how they executed
Ah.
people, and I can't think of it now. I wish I could.
And he made an audio tape of this.
And he had talked to one of the guys who had been there
Oh, wow.
and had been part of that execution of the Boer War veteran or the Boer War soldiers who had
Been
shot
captured. Oh
the
my
Boers,
goodness.
not captured, but had executed the Boers.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, or the people who killed the Boers, I should say.
So
Anyway,
is this all now available through the veterans website
absolutely,
that you can go to today?
that you could have gone to 30 years ago. I don't know,
But
25.
it keeps being updated,
Upgraded, and it's one that it's funny. One of the biggest problems that I found with government when I was there, it never promoted itself.
yes,
I can remember when I was dealing with this, trying to get uh, the war graves,
yes,
having war graves online. There was some infighting between divisions.
mm.
They delayed things so long that guess what happened? The Commonwealth War Graves put up their own
Oh,
before
okay, yes, yes.
the
Well,
Canadian version was ever done.
yeah. No, well, I mean, a good idea is a good idea, right? So, Bob,
Yeah,
when you say this, like I was going to say this a few minutes ago, but this must have been one of the most exciting times in your work life when you're putting together this project. Like you're being asked to go to the UK. You're like you're like you worked with your friend who's the programmer to put this whole thing together. Was this not like one of the most exciting times of your work life?
Absolutely.
Like you're
And
creating something new.
oh, it was a lot of work, a lot of effort, some frustration, because you got to remember you're telling this at a time to people who really
Oh yeah.
a lot didn't even understand you. I remember when I put my first proposal through for a website, and one of the leaders of one of the other divisions who I had presented to, along with the assistant deputy minister, she pulled me off to the side later and she said, "You will put that in over my dead body."
it it is one of the most, like, you could attest to this in a big way, but it's one of the biggest things that we have in our lives is change. And we're at a I would say almost a crest again, that so much is changing at so rapid a pace that it's really driven by the computer, right? But it's like, but you would have seen a lot of that in its infancy with the coming of the internet, the coming of the website. Like what you've described, what a time to be part of things going on that you participated in. Like you
Yeah,
sound like when you describe working with your programming friend and putting it together to build this model office, it's kind of like the Jobs Wozniak story of creating the Mac, right? Like
I
it's
can relate to that.
I'll bet you can. I'll bet you
Never,
can.
never ever put myself in an equivalent position to those people. Those people were geniuses. But, it was so invigorating. And we used to have a saying, let's get to it before the suits get in.
How true that is, man. No, it's like it's. I'm going to go to another thing that has come up through a number of episodes, but this process, it came through in a design world, but it actually turns out to be something that came out of the psychology world, and this is where you do like a forming, storming, norming, and performing.
Mm,
And you've told that story numerous times of like you formed an idea, like what if we made a website? And then you storm that idea, right? And that storm hurts. And it has to hurt in order that you can come out of it to normalize it. And then you find out how it performs. Well, that's 30 years ago. You talked about the website forming that, right?
mhm.
Obviously, obviously it works, right? It's performing. And it's like such a neat, but
Well,
as you describe, you, I think, in the government would see storming at levels that would be almost unimaginable.
yes, you were dealing you were dealing with a mentality, and I don't. It's what people are like. It's
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
you know. We say there's very few people in the world say yes,
Yes.
but there's a lot of people say no
And think about
and think about
it.
it. But it's interesting. But one of the things I grew up through my career was with the web. I had became one of the department, became on one of the government's websites. They had a whole committee of webmasters. I was the one for Veterans Affairs. So we would talk about how we would do, and this was very early on in stages, and most people couldn't even spell web, you know. But the point, the point that I found is that because those people that were, how do I say, the naysayers or
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
the web was great, but there's a dark side of the web.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we're going through the same thing now with AI.
Oh yeah. Oh no question about it.
The problem was we have to be very careful. And there's an author called well, Noah. He wrote *Sapien*, and
Oh
he's
yes. Yes. I know who you mean.
Yuval
Yes, Yuval.
Noah
Yep.
Harari. Uh, we have to make sure we get control of things. I don't think we got a good control over the internet. It was able to go whichever direction it went. And I'm not a control guy, because what control also breeds is the naysayers.
You got it. It's one of those things. I talk a lot about AI on this podcast because I'm loving it. Like
Yeah.
I'm finding a new fascinating. What I think is a challenge, and it's an addition to your point, is this discussion around, and we have it with a computer when it came in the internet. It's like if it becomes sentient, like if
Hmm.
it becomes alive, and it's like how quick our human brain goes to that if it's alive. Like we just zoom there so quick, and it's like
Yeah.
we forget, like, and this is kind of a broken record comment I said, but we can't create the first element on the periodic table. We can't create a hydrogen atom. Like we
No.
can't create water, and we don't last very long without water. We can extract it, like the hydrogen and
Mhm.
oxygen from other things and make water, but we can't make water. Like we can't make what it makes. And it's like, so you think a computer is going to have the ability to become sentient? And I said to check, and I think this is where you all kind of you want. I can't pronounce his name properly. Noah, the author you're talking about,
Mhm.
is if we believe it is, that's where the problem comes into place.
Yes.
Like if you believe that Google is alive,
Hmm.
that's the problem. What we forget is it's all humans behind all the stuff that goes on,
Yes.
right? All the algorithms were written by a human. And the
Yeah.
algorithm that they say was written by a computer, well, it was originally written by a human. Like all that seems to be so quickly forgotten. And so why I find this very fascinating, because when you were talking about the naysayers, um, and how you're introducing, like you're in a room with a bunch of web designers, as an example, from you were just describing this, right? And you're there
Mhm.
from finance. There must be lots of times where you would have this, that what they call the imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, we didn't go to programming school, and we haven't worked in a programming company, but that doesn't mean we haven't got enormous stuff to offer, because you think, you put
One of the,
things, you connect, right?
but one of the things that we're very complacent
Oh, yes.
in
Yes.
many, many things.
Take things for granted.
And I go that way as well. You know,
Hmm.
since I started with the internet, I looked where it moved. I looked at the bad stuff that came out of it. I look at AI. Uh, it's got a tremendous potential
Oh,
for good
yes.
and bad.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not going to get rid
But
of the
you know
bad.
why it doesn't, why we're in such a dilemma? Is we fail to take the time to understand it.
Oh, no, how true that is, right? Like, we
We,
often jump to a conclusion
yes,
before we've understood it, right?
you wouldn't believe times I've told the story I've told you, and people have come to me. Oh yeah, but they just use the web for porn. No, I came across that argument so
Oh,
many
yes.
times. You
Yeah.
know where it came from? People who didn't
We're,
understand.
mhm.
And we're
Yes. Yeah.
doomed to go the same way, maybe even worse with AI.
Well, we step it
And,
up, it seems. Yeah, we step it up a level every time. But we've been
and
doing this since the beginning, too.
we have to find ways to teach people. And we use all of a sudden we use a term and then it goes from just being a term but nobody understands to a term that becomes bad. You know,
AI.
yeah, yeah. And and everybody has to we haven't got enough people in AI. I heard one company, I'm going to fire all my executives because they don't know AI. Well, in all fairness, I know what the term means, and I know that your brother in law has been involved with it for many, many years. But it's it's not all bad.
No, no, absolutely not.
You
Uh,
know, oh, we got to restrict guns. Well, no, guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Nope.
You know,
Yep.
so that's where you got to start. Not, you know, so we have to figure out how we're going to monitor or be aware of what's going on. And one of the biggest problems we have in life, and I think where we have come now is, one is democracy.
Is
People
what?
seem democracy.
Oh, yes, democracy. Yes.
People have seemed to be able to put their own
Yes.
definition to it. And what it was meant to be and what it's become to be used as is scary. So I don't know how we change. I don't know. I don't have, if I had the answers, I don't know where I'll be. But
Well,
there are things that,
the one
yeah,
thing that gives me confidence, Bob, in a lot of this is the generations coming.
yes,
And I've had a number of, I'll say, younger minds on the podcast. And every time I chat with them, the last one, the episode hasn't aired yet, but I started to talk about drones, and I couldn't help but think the world is in good hands. Like the coming minds are that's what gives me a lot of faith and hope in the future. Like like it's us like 50 years ago, right?
yeah,
And those that look back on us who were the seniors at that point in time. Like I remember one guy telling me, he says, before you change a system, make really, really sure you understand the system that you're changing. And that stayed with me forever. Not to not change, but to your point that you just said, understanding what that is, right? Like, and
yes.
trying to figure those things out. So that's to me what gives me a lot of hope because I mean, in 20 years, well, who knows, right? Like it's going to say we have longevity in our family here. So by and large,
Well, but we're all living in a nanosecond of time.
there's no question about that.
So are you the constant optimist or the constant pessimist? Is it half full? Is it half empty? It's both.
Yes. Yes. No matter how you look at it, it's both.
It's both. So we have to understand that. And one of the biggest problems that we are all susceptible to are the Charlemagnes. Whoa, man.
Yes.
Because
More than
those
ever.
people, they only understand one thing, and that is what they want
Themselves.
themselves.
Yep.
So they don't understand what the basis of all this other stuff is. And we got to be very, very careful that we don't let these people be in charge of the button.
No, there's no question on that. I was going to
Anyway,
say this. What's that? Because I was going to say I've taken you into your dinner hour now.
no. We're both on it. My problem was, and this is why I never was a great auditor, is I don't have a big enough bladder.
Well, I
And
was going to say if you can hold on for just a bit, I was going to say maybe we can wrap up if you'd like.
I'd love to. I'd love to come back again if we want to
Well, I
sometime.
was going to say, one of the things that I wanted to kind of remark. It's been wonderful to have you on, Bob. Like this has
Thank you.
been a true privilege for me to like
It's been
some
a
of the
privilege for me.
you talking about your dad, my grandpa, and you fishing when you're coming up to my dad's wedding. Like that picture I've never had before, and now that will remain with me.
I'm
But
glad.
all the things that you've kind of shared and a bunch of very interesting things. I mean, I always look forward. I meant to mention this. One of my favorite times in the past, and maybe there'll be another in the future, was coming to Prince Edward Island for that Alexander Keith and lobster.
Ha ha. Still here.
Those
It
were
hasn't
like
gone away.
we had always like real fun times doing that. But with that, I was going to say, I've taken a lot of time. We've gone through a lot of things. Your life has been very fascinating, and all the things
Well,
that you've been able to get connected
I
with and be
am
part
the
of it.
lucky. I have to, before you conclude, I
Yeah.
have to say, in retrospect, and we really have to get a point in time when we can use that word properly. I am the luckiest man on the face of the earth. I really am. And
Well,
you know,
what I was going to ask you was, and after all we've gone through, do you have anything you'd like to close with? And that is kind of like a perfect thing to close with. You preempted. That's cool.
uh, Well, we all just live in a nanosecond of time. But the key is what you do. It doesn't matter if it's a second, a month, a year, whatever. It's what you do with that time that is so extremely important. And at the end of your life, which we're all coming to shortly, and anyway, nothing bad, you'll be able to look back at and say, "Yeah, I'm happy.
That's cool.
I'm happy."
Well, that's very cool. Well,
Yeah.
Bob, I'm gonna give your bladder some relief here, and I'm going to thank you again for joining
Well,
the
thank
episode
you
today. It's
very,
been
very much
spectacular. What
for
is
asking me. It was I had a lot of not misgivings, but concerns. Thinking back, what am I going to say? But that's always been me,
well,
and it's been great. It's been really good, and then in particular, just having the time to chat with you that
yes.
we've never had before.
No. That is a very cool thing. So with
And thank
that,
you so much.
I'm gonna say thank you, Bob, for joining us today, and I'm thanking you for listening to this episode of Better Than Not. It may not be as meaningful to you as for me, but we all have families, and we're all connected with those families. As Bob has said several times, that connection is important. So hopefully you'll join us in future episodes. And again, thank you for joining us today. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Doug. Have a great life.
Are we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not.